we have a large number of works in our special collections on the history of science, chemistry, physics, geology, and so on. Well, this collection has been enriched tremendously by a bequest made a few years ago by an alumna named Elizabeth Dodge Sturgis, who received from her grandfather a collection of books, most of which you see on the table in front of me, that her grandfather collected while he was studying in Germany in the 1870s. There are a number of small chapbooks, what we would call today paperback books because they have paper backs, that look very, very plain. However, when you open them up, they are remarkable publications. This one is one of my favorites. It's got a frontispiece of an owl wearing spectacles, surely a sign of the search for wisdom and its effects on the eyes. Some of these books from the Sturgis bequest are bound in vellum. It's sheepskin, goatskin, cowskin. It's very, very tough. Think about it as the early, pre-modern version of plastic. But there are remnants in most of these books of previous readers. There are marginal notations. There are diagrams and drawings that previous owners of these books have left. There are responses. Sometimes there are angry responses. Sometimes people disagreed with what was being written and let their disagreement be known. And little by little, these works will be fully cataloged. All of the information about them will be put up on the Denison Special Collections website. Translations when available. That's the fun thing, since they are in. Well, let me turn to the spotlight of the collection. This is the oldest artifact of the bequest, and it is Denison University's first intact medieval manuscript. This is a previously uncatalogued manuscript, and it also, like the rest of the Dodge books, is a scientific manuscript, but it is from the science of alchemy. That itself is fascinating enough. For the history of chemistry, for the history of alchemy, the works that are in this manuscript are very interesting. But we are really, really lucky because there are only about a dozen copies of the texts, there are 3 different works that are in this short little manuscript of about 60 pages in the United States. In the world, there are between 50 and 100 of each of them. And so for Denison University to have this manuscript is tremendous. Now this is a small medieval manuscript, I mean a brief medieval manuscript. The image that most people have in their minds is of a great big tome, with the great big metal clasps and the thump sound when it gets opened up. Medieval manuscripts are very rarely that splashy. And when they are, they're really not very interesting. This first item in the manuscript is the work of John of Rupecissa. This is his treatise on the quintessence, on the making and the uses of ethyl alcohol. And it's divided, as you can see, into several subheadings. It's in some places it's very wackadoodle, but in some places this treatise is really spot on. You can see how its author, Rupecissa, is responding to observed phenomenon and is trying to heal people. This is called the third distinction, tertia distinctio, right? And it's attributed to Raymond Lull. The idea was it generally follows versions of this work of Rupecissa in some form or another. So we have the first book, the second book, the third book. right? So there are plenty of manuscripts that have come down to us in which 1, 2, 3, they're all represented as being the work of Raymond Lull. This manuscript does not do that. Okay? This manuscript presents Rupescus's text. Okay? It is not an adapted text. It's not a truncated text. This is the work of John of Rupescus. Okay? But for some reason, our scribe, whether it's because it was the only copy that he had, or because he chose to do it, then supplemented Rupescus's work with this tertia distincta. Right? That is really, really interesting to me. I want to figure out why he did that. The relative scarcity of primary documents to work with. To have these kinds of riches suddenly appear in my life is remarkable. As a nerd, as a bona fide book nerd, there is nothing that I can imagine being of greater interest than a previously unknown book. You don't find that in the modern period.